Japan has one of the longest life expectancies on Earth. Men live to about 81.09 years. Women live to about 87.13 years, according to 2024 data from Japan's Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare. That puts Japan roughly 3 years above the average among developed nations tracked by the OECD. And the strangest part is that there's no single miracle food, no banned ingredient, no government-mandated diet plan. Instead, there's a collection of quiet, unwritten rules baked into daily life that most Japanese people follow without even thinking about them. Rules that were never printed in a textbook but somehow keep an entire nation healthier than almost any other country on the planet. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what those rules are, why they work, and how to apply them with what you already have in your kitchen. The first rule is one you can see the moment a Japanese meal hits the table. It's called Ichiju Sensai, which translates to 1 soup, 3 dishes. A typical meal includes steamed rice, 1 bowl of miso soup, 1 main dish like grilled fish, and 2 smaller side dishes made from vegetables, seaweed, or beans. This is the foundation of what's called washoku, which literally means harmony of food. In 2013, UNESCO officially recognized washoku as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity, not just because of the food itself, but because of what the food represents. Seasonal ingredients, visual presentation, balance of taste, texture, and color. The whole philosophy is about variety and moderation rather than loading up one plate with a single heavy dish. And because you're eating from several small bowls at once, the meal naturally takes longer to finish, giving your brain time to register that you're satisfied. Now, that leads directly into the second rule, and it might be the most powerful one. It's called Hara Hachibu, a phrase rooted in Confucian teaching that means eat until you are 8 parts out of 10 full. In Okinawa, where some of the longest-lived people in the world reside, this practice has been followed for generations. You eat slowly, you chew carefully, and you put your chopsticks down before your stomach feels completely stuffed. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but think about it. Most weight gain comes from consistently eating just a little more than your body needs. Stopping at 80% full day after day, year after year, creates an enormous difference over a lifetime. The third rule is about flavor, and it explains why Japanese food can taste so satisfying without relying on heavy fats or excessive sugar. The secret is umami, the so-called fifth taste, which comes from ingredients like dashi broth, fermented soy products, and seaweed. According to research published in the journal Nutrients, the use of umami-rich ingredients in washoku allows cooks to minimize salt, sugar, and animal fat while still making dishes deeply flavorful. This is a huge deal. In most Western cooking traditions, richness comes from butter, cream, cheese, or oil. In Japanese cooking, that richness comes from fermented miso, soy sauce, and kelp-based broth. The result is meals that feel complete and satisfying, but carry far fewer calories from fat. Speaking of fermentation, that brings us to the fourth unwritten rule. Fermented foods appear in almost every Japanese meal. Miso soup at breakfast, pickled vegetables alongside rice. Natto, those sticky fermented soybeans that foreigners often find challenging. These aren't occasional health foods. They're daily staples. Fermented foods serve multiple purposes. They add flavor depth, they act as natural probiotics supporting gut health, and they reduce the need for heavy seasonings. Here's where things get really interesting. Researchers in Japan reconstructed typical household menus from 4 different eras: 1960, 1975, 1990, and 2005, and then tested the health effects of each diet on lab animals. The 1975 diet, which was rich in seafood, legumes, seaweed, and a wide variety of small dishes with almost no soft drinks, produced the lowest risk of visceral fat, fatty liver, and diabetes compared to all other eras tested. The 1975 diet wasn't extreme in any direction. It wasn't ultra-low-carb or high-protein. It was simply well-balanced, diverse, and modest in portion size. That era may have represented the sweet spot in Japan's dietary history. And the data backs this up when you look at the bigger picture. In 1949, according to Japan's National Health and Nutrition Survey, about 80.7% of energy intake came from carbohydrates, mostly rice. Fat accounted for only about 6.9%. By 2000, carbohydrates had dropped to about 57.5%, and fat had risen to roughly 26.5%. The Japanese diet shifted considerably over those decades, absorbing more Western influence, more meat, more processed food. Yet the country still maintained remarkably high life expectancy, likely because many of these unwritten rules persisted even as the food itself changed. But here's a perspective that challenges the idea that Japan has everything figured out. Salt intake remains a genuine problem. The most recent national survey, conducted between October and November of 2025, found that the average Japanese person consumes about 9.6 grams of salt per day. That's the lowest figure in 12 years, which sounds encouraging until you realize the government's own health target under the program called Health Japan 21 is 7 grams per day. That gap matters. High sodium intake is directly linked to hypertension and stroke has historically been a leading cause of death in Japan. So while the unwritten rules do an excellent job managing calories and promoting variety, they haven't fully solved the salt issue. Miso, soy sauce, and pickled foods, the very pillars of washoku, are all significant sodium sources. There's another crack forming in the system. Trend analysis covering 2003 through 2019 shows that younger Japanese generations are shifting toward more Western-style eating patterns, and this shift correlates with lower overall diet quality. Average BMI among younger and middle-aged adults has been increasing. Japan's obesity rate is still remarkably low compared to most wealthy nations, but the trend line is moving in the wrong direction. Now, let's talk about something that rarely gets discussed when people praise the Japanese diet: mental health. A study conducted by the Japan Institute for Health Security looked at roughly 12,500 workers in the Kanto and Tokai regions between fiscal 2018 and 2020. They found that employees whose meals frequently included traditional Japanese dishes had a 17% lower rate of depressive symptoms compared to those who rarely ate traditional meals. The researchers adjusted for age, education, alcohol use, and other factors. It's worth being honest here. This is a correlation, not proof that diet directly causes better mental health. Sleep, work stress, and social connection all play roles. But the association is striking enough that it raises a real question about whether the physical benefits of these food rules might extend into emotional well-being too. There's one more unwritten rule that ties everything together, and it's possibly the easiest one to overlook. Rice in Japan is almost always served plain. Steamed. No butter. No oil. No heavy seasoning. It sounds boring until you realize what this does structurally to a meal. Plain rice acts as a neutral base that lets the flavors of soup, fish, vegetables, and pickles do the work. It keeps the calorie count of the staple low while encouraging you to eat more of the nutritious side dishes. Compare that to rice preparations common in other cuisines: fried rice, pilaf, rice cooked in coconut milk, and you start to see how this one small habit adds up over thousands of meals. Green tea deserves a mention too. It's not just a beverage in Japan. It's woven into daily routines, served at meals, offered to guests, consumed throughout the day. Rich in antioxidants, green tea replaces what might otherwise be sugary drinks or calorie-heavy coffee preparations. So what does all of this actually mean for someone watching from outside Japan? The unwritten rules aren't about restriction. They're about structure. Small portions across many dishes instead of one massive plate. Stopping before you feel completely full. Leaning on fermented flavors and broth instead of fat and sugar. Eating seasonally and locally when possible. Keeping rice simple. Sitting down, slowing down, paying attention to your food. Japan isn't perfect. Salt consumption is still too high. Younger generations are drifting from traditional patterns. The mental health findings, while promising, need more study. But the fact remains that a nation of over 125 million people continues to outlive almost every other country on Earth, and much of that can be traced back to quiet daily habits. Passed down not through law or regulation, but through family meals, school lunches, and a shared cultural understanding of what food is supposed to do. It's supposed to nourish you, satisfy you, and then let you get on with your day, not weigh you down. That might be the most powerful unwritten rule of all.